The focus of this video is going to be on advanced array methods. If you haven't watched the first video on arrow functions, I would start there because we're going to be using exclusively arrow functions throughout this whole video. Now, in JavaScript 1, I think in week 2 or 3, you would have already learned about some array methods. An array behind the scenes in JavaScript is just an object, and objects have properties. And JavaScript gives arrays superpowers by basically giving them built-in functions so that we can manipulate and do things to those arrays. So if we look at, let's actually go back to JavaScript week 1, the curriculum, and just to recap what we covered before. I think it's week 2, sorry. Oh, no, maybe week 3. Yes, it was there. So that's where we cover pop, push, shift, all of those array methods. In this lesson, in JavaScript 2, we're going to go over some more advanced function array methods. And these ones are going to be a bit different in that they all take functions as arguments. And the ones that we're going to cover are for each, map, and filter. So I'm going to go back to our code from before. We've got the same document. We've still got an index file. And I'm going to remove all this because we don't quite need it for now. And I'm going to start by pasting in a huge array. So let's go back to our example here. And in the lesson plan, we've got an array of mentors here. So we're going to use this for our working example. So here's our mentors. There we go. This is going to be there. And each mentor has 3 properties. So name, the subjects that they're good at, and then their years of experience. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cover for each. And if you're unfamiliar with something, it's really good to get in the habit of looking into the documentation first. So we're going to go to MDN for each. And let's take a look. Let's see what we can learn before we actually start writing any code, just from the documentation. So for each method executes a provided function once for each array element. So given this array, you can see they're even using arrow functions in the examples here. So it takes the element, referring to the element it's currently operating on in the array. And then for this case, it's going to console.log that. So if we look at the syntax here, the first thing we pass is a callback. And a callback is just another name for a function used as an argument, but we'll get into more of the specifics of the nuances of callbacks and what it means to be a callback function next week. So you don't have to worry too much about that. But what's more important to focus on is what that function gets. So the main thing we'll be worried about is the first argument of that function, which is going to be the current value, meaning the current element which we're iterating on. We've got the index referring to the index or the where that element is in the array. And then you've actually got the array itself. Rarely do I use the third option there, but definitely I use the current, no doubt you're going to need the current value and also the index. So I think for each, let's get into writing some code now. I think it's easiest to compare this to a for loop because this is probably what you're most used to. So if we write a for loop here, and for loops are great, they're very versatile, but honestly, they're a bit of a pain to write. You have to declare I equals 0, yeah, and then this is where I always get it wrong. I is less than array dot length, or no, we don't want array. What do we call our array again? We called it mentors. So I is less than mentors dot length, and then I plus plus. And then from here, let's just console.log let's console.log every mentor, for example. So we know how to do that, mentor of I. And this is going to work. If we take a look here, this is going to work assuming that I haven't done anything incorrectly. Let's open up the console here. Mentor is not defined. That's because we need to access mentors. All right, so this is just a for loop. Again, nothing new, we're used to that. And what I'm gonna start by doing is rewriting this as using for each. So because it's an array method, the first thing we need to do is access it on the array. So we're gonna do mentors dot for each. And now this is where we go ahead and pass in the function. So I can pass in the arrow function there, like that. If we look at the documents again, the first argument we get is the current value. So we can just name it the same. Current value. And then the next thing we get is the index. So we'll just use those two for now. And I'm just going to start by console.logging the current value. And actually, let's bring back our loop for a second here. So I just want to compare. I want you to show you. The greatest thing about array methods is they basically mean you never need to write a loop again, because there's built-in things right in the arrays that are going to handle a lot of this for you. You just need to get comfortable with the syntax. Let's get rid of this. We're not going to use the index argument right now, but look at how much more concise this is. And I think it's more readable as well. So you can basically read this as for each mentor, and you can name this current value anything, right? So I try to name the argument based on what I'm iterating on. So it's the current value, but what is that current value? It's a mentor, right? So I'm going to rename this to mentor. And that's kind of like what we're doing here, right? For mentors of I. So for each mentor, take that mentor and then console.log that mentor. So if you sit there and you actually reason about the way it's written, it actually reads quite similar to English. So it once you familiarize yourself with the syntax, it's just like reading a book almost. So let's save that there, and we're going to get rid of our loop because then we'll have too many mentors logged out. But we can see, let's actually add just mentors and in for each. That perfect. So now if we go back here and we go back to our console, we can see, if I move my big head out of the way, yeah, we get each mentor here. And then we've got our little string in for each. So we know we're actually getting this from the for each. Now, generally, you're not going to want a console.log something for, I mean, maybe for debugging you want to, but this opens up quite a lot of opportunities for us in terms of writing really concise code if we want to manipulate the DOM. So maybe we could do something like this. So let's do this, and we're going to give ourselves some brackets here. So let's say for each mentor, let's create an h1 with their name. So we'll do const h1 equals document dot create element, and we'll do h1. And then we'll actually, outside of our loop, we're going to select our body. So const body equals document dot query selector. Just select body. And then we're going to do h1 dot inner HTML equals mentor dot name. And then we're going to do body dot append child h1. So now we've got a really easy way to write dynamic code to the DOM. So let's go and see what we got here. Look at that. That's pretty cool. We've got all the mentors' names written out as an h1 tag. So that's for each. I'm going to get rid of the loop here. Got a for each. The last thing I want to note about for each is it doesn't return anything. So if I try and store this in a variable, so const what is for each. So if we check the return value of looping or running for each on an array, we're going to get undefined. So let's just do that here. We're going to console.log this out. Let's go back to the browser for a second here, and we get undefined. That's important, not so much for how you would generally use for each, but mainly because the other two array methods that we are working on, working with today, so map and filter, they do return something. Let's look at map next. So I'm going to get rid of this here. Next up, we've got map. And map is interesting because it's very similar to for each. So let's look up the docs for map here. MDN map. Oh, this is not what we wanted. We want array method map. Yes, this is the one. So map is a bit different in that it allows us to we still iterate the same way like we do in for each, but we can read up here, it creates a new array populated with the result of calling a provided function on every element in the calling array. So essentially, given an array, we can create a new array where it allows us to run a function where we generate that array. And you may be thinking to yourself, why would I ever need to create an array based on an array? And I can promise you it is incredibly common, and it's something that as you progress in your development career, it's something you're always going to be doing. So it's going to be weird now, but get comfortable with the syntax, and I promise you one day it will make complete sense. But we can look at the syntax here. So let's see, for example, we've got this array, and it's just values. And what they're doing when they're mapping over this one, we can see it, they save that value to a variable now. When they map over it, they're multiplying every value by 2. So in this case, the output is just every value in the initial array times 2. The important thing to note, however, is it's a new array. So in a lot of the methods that we used before, like pop, push, shift, they actually changed our original array. And both map and filter do not change the array. They give us a completely new one, leaving our original one intact. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's go into the code here. So we can take our mentors object. So let's create a new const mentor. Let's do mentor name list, since that I think will be the most easy to reason about. So we can do mentor name list equals mentors.map, and we pass it a function again, just like we've done up here. And that function is going to take the same arguments as for each. The beauty of these more advanced array methods is they have the same signature. So they're all going to take a function, and the function gets the current value, the index, and then finally the array. So let's get in here. We're going to write a function, another arrow function again. I'm going to pass it the arrow, and then we'll do an implicit return for now. So we get the mentor here, because we're mapping over an array of mentors. And then for each mentor, given each mentor, we want to create a new array with returning their names. So let's do mentor.name. So now this probably looks pretty crazy. What am I doing here? So I'm taking the mentors array, I'm mapping over it, meaning iterating over every single element. And given each element, I want it to return me a new array where each element in that array is the name of the mentor. Now, I said before that we're not modifying the original array. So what we're going to do next is we're going to console.log the mentor name list. And I'm going to put it in an object here so that it's named. So mentor name list. And then we're going to do mentors. So that's a little trick there. if you want names on your variables. Actually, I think that looks hard to read. Let's do it like this instead. A log. I'm just going to put a string here, mentor name list. We're going to log out mentor name list, and then we're going to log out mentors. Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at that. Oh, it's over here. So we can see we've done exactly what we've set out to do. Our new variable, mentors name list, is a new array with only the names of the mentors. That's all we've chosen to include in there. However, our original list is still intact with the name, the subjects, and then the years of experience. The next method we're going to look into is filter. Now, filter, it does as it says. It's going to filter elements out of the array. So let's go ahead and look up the docs again. And let's look up filter. So we'll go mdn filter. So the filter method creates a new array with all elements that pass the test implemented by the provided function. So we're writing a test. We're checking. So in this case here, we've got an array of words. We're checking to see if the word is greater than a specified length, 6, then it gets to stay. So basically you're checking to make sure, hey, is this what I want? If it is, keep it. If not, exclude it. And just like the other two array methods, it has the same signature. So it gets callback, it takes the current element, index, the array, same as it was for the other two. So let's get an example here. So if we want to filter, we'll do const, what do we want this time? So maybe we want all of the mentors with more than 2 years of experience. So what we'll do is let's call it experienced mentors equals mentors dot filter, and we get a mentor again. And now this is where we want to put in our condition. So what are we checking for? We want to make sure that the mentor has more than 2 years worth of experience. And what we need to make sure this function does in filter is it's essentially returning a Boolean value. So if whatever this function returns is true, then it meets our criteria and it will be included. If this function evaluates to false, it will return false and reject that element in the array. So we'll do mentor dot years of experience, and we want to check that it's greater than 2. And we will go ahead and console.log this out. And we can see here, so in both cases, we have 6 mentors, and 4 mentors. So if we see 4, 8, 3, and 9, so that means we filtered out Alan, oh no, not Alan, Anders, and Ahmed. So it works. Now, what's nice about these is because they're returning an array for the most part, that means we can chain them together. So what does that mean for us? That means we can, I'm going to create a new section here called chaining array methods. And we'll do something like this. So we'll do mentors.map. Or no, let's start here. So let's do mentors.filter. And we'll get a mentor. And we want all of the mentors that, let's say here, let's stick with years of experience again. I think that's simple for now. Well, mentor dot year experience is greater than 3. mix it up this time. And then I can do dot, because it's returning an array, I can just do dot map. And now I can map over this. And you can do anything with map, right? So maybe, and we'll get the mentor here. And we'll do this. So we can create a list of strings. Maybe we want an array of strings that we can then render to the DOM. So for each mentor, I want to return a template string where I say, inject their name. We'll do mentor.name has, we'll do mentor.years of experience, years of experience. So now we filtered, we've gotten rid of any of the mentors that have less than 3 years experience. We've mapped, and now we've got an array of all of these strings. And then finally, we can do for each. And then we can do kind of what we've done up here. And we can create a DOM element for each of these. So I'm going to do for each mentor. I want to let's do h3 this time. Document.create element h3. And then we're going to do h3.inner HTML equals, and we can set that. Well, I guess technically this isn't a mentor anymore. It's a sentence, right? So we'll set that equal to the mentor sentence. And then we'll do body.append child h3. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've done here. Hopefully nothing's wrong. Cannot access h3 before initialization. Let's take a look here.